Record. Hi everyone. It's Kasia from Tarot Map and welcome to another episode of Inspired Tarot Map. And today I caught up with Amy Won. Hi Amy.
Hi Kasia.
And Amy is the creator of a deck for wonder walking, and I think if you follow my channel you would have heard about this deck, or if you follow me on Instagram, and I'm pretty sure if you're in our tarot community you have seen this deck one way or another on Instagram or on YouTube. It's amazing. So because I fell in love with this deck, I of course wanted to invite Amy to, like, you know, pull her brain a little bit and so that she can tell us a little bit more about the backstory behind the deck and what else she's kind of doing around it. And I'm really happy I did. And we were just talking for a while and we decided to press record because we don't want to miss anything.
So we don't repeat everything, all the juicy stuff.
Yeah, we discovered that Amy and myself both have Mercury in Sagittarius and that we like weird sense of humor sometimes.
We're a little offbeat.
Yes, sometimes it might be not very polite, but we're trying. But anyway.
I know it's interesting when you work in this sort of world, right? The space that we're in, and kind of there's the whole magical aspect of it. But then there's just me, like the raw, uncut me. It's like, do people like that? Because I'm not like serene and peaceful all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what I was telling Amy, that when I saw the deck for the first time, and I'm not sure if you guys, I have a review of this deck, so you can take a look. It's a beauty. I just want to show a few examples for people who maybe haven't seen it yet. And even though you might go, what are these? What do they show? You know, it's a very, very special deck, and we are going to be talking about the art and what's behind the deck, the idea behind the deck. But going back to what you said, Amy, that, you know, people maybe even looking at your art could consider you like this very peaceful and, you know, maybe without a sense of humor. I don't know. I didn't think so, but I definitely thought that you're very mindful, very peaceful, you know. And when I went onto your website to check a little bit more information about the deck after I got it, I was thinking, wow, like I loved everything you had on the website. And I actually advise everybody who listens and who loves art, nature, just kind of enchanted inspiration to go to Amy's website. I'm going to link it below, because there is so much amazing stuff there on this website. So I was really reading and I'm thinking amazing quotes that I'm like, I'm resonating with it, you know. I will like Amy, like the mindful approach and like just your love for nature and this like beautiful kind of creative, curious, childlike, you know, yeah, this enchanted kind of way of being. I thought like, definitely my type of person. Like, you know, I really wanted to speak to you about like everything really. And funny enough, Amy, sorry that I'm talking so much. I'm going to,
no worries.
The word like come and say something finally. But funny enough, I usually, you know, prepare for those interviews. And with you, I just felt like I have to go like fresh. I wrote like a few questions, but really I thought like, no, it's going to just flow. Like we'll see where it takes us, you know, the conversation. So
that's always best, right?
Yeah, you know. And for everybody, like I thought, because I love astrology so much, I decided to ask my guests now what star signs they are. So we have just checked for Amy, not the star sign, but the moon and the ascendant. So Amy, do you want to share with us what star sign you are?
I am a Scorpio.
Yes.
And you did a little
Taurus, yeah. And ascendant in Taurus.
And
I was sitting here on the other side thinking Taurus loves nature. Taurus is really artistic. Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's this very sensual sign which has, you know, very deep connection to the sensuality, like all the senses, you know, scent, smell, site.
Oh, cool.
So I was just like, yeah, if you go to your website, I'm thinking, I can see this, you know, is this art? It's really beautiful. So yeah.
Oh, that's so nice to know. I really want to find out more about it. I used to know all this a little bit, like, but I don't remember it. But the way you describe it feels, well, also, I guess we grow and we go through different stages, and sometimes we don't live up to our signs.
Well, I think, you know, we always learn about our signs. Just because you're a Scorpio and I'm a Sag, I think this is like one of our biggest lessons in the positive and the negative. You know, we might swing in extremes within our archetype.
Right.
And learning to kind of, you know, shine the brightest you can by being a Scorpio. And, you know, you probably will be testing those extremes of Scorpios during life, you know. The younger
and there are a lot of extremes.
Exactly. And I think when we're growing, it comes easier and maybe more natural for us to actually live our star sign and, you know, moon sign and ascendant and all the other planets in more conscious way. And
that's what it is, the consciousness.
Yeah. And it's never static, you know, it's always, this astrology is so fascinating because it grows with you. So if you're 5, you have the same chart, but, you know, you're 55 and you have the same chart, and it's still, you're still very different.
But there's definitely themes that have stuck around.
Definitely.
You know, things that have, I mean, obviously this deck is a theme that have stuck around with me all my life. So it's just nice to be aware of what those themes are. And like you said, they're archetypes as well. You know?
Yeah, and I think these themes also, you know, they don't disappear. They just like stretch and become more conscious, but you're still living them. Like if you have any, like some blockages or something, like they might not block you later on, but they still probably there. You just treat them differently and you don't cry, you know, what happens, or you just change. So it's fascinating. I really love it. But I wanted to ask you about your ancestry, where you're from, because, you know, like being not Asian and looking at you, I sometimes can't figure out, are you Chinese? Are you like, can you tell us a little bit like the background?
I'm not surprised at all that it would be hard to figure out, first of all, because I have a very mixed, but also I've lived all over the world. And first of all, my name is Amy Won, but I'm not actually Korean. I'm married to a half Korean, which is why I have the last name Won. My original last name is Tan, which is Chinese, but I'm not from China. My grandmother was. I grew up in Malaysia, so I'm Malaysian Chinese. I have a little bit of native Malay blood somewhere along the lines. We don't know where, but at some point in my heritage. I also have some Thai blood. My grandfather's mom was Thai. So yeah, there's a little bit of Malay and Thai in my ancestry. So I'm very much Southeast Asian, if that's probably the most accurate way to describe me. I'm Southeast Asian Chinese. I moved to the States in my early 20s, and I have been here since. I used to live in Australia for a little bit. Like
me too. What year?
2000. Yeah, 2000. 2001. When were you there?
I was 2003 to 2011.
Oh gosh, that's a long time. Where were you?
I was in Sydney.
Okay, I was in Perth. So
all right, well, we wouldn't
have run into each other.
Opposite ends. 4 hours flight within one country. It's so funny. You can go
the barren country.
Yeah, it's huge. Cool. Well, that's really interesting. And I love Thailand, and in general, I love Southeast Asia. So
great food. If you love our Southeast Asian, you must love the food too.
I actually just ordered Thai food before our interview. It's going to get delivered when we finish.
Yum.
Okay, so let's move on to important things. I just felt like, you know, I will ask you about the deck, but I would like you to give me a little bit broader perspective. So, you know, I wrote down something like, you know, how the deck came to life, and but what is the inspiration behind it, and what is your intention for it? Because I know that you have like this idea, it looked to me like this from your website, when you do different courses, artistic expression, you have this amazing planner, and you've done like much more around the deck than just the deck itself. So if you could just go for it, you know. I will stop you at some point to go, wait, but yeah, just tell me like about the deck. How did it all start, and how come you just, you know, made it?
Oh, such a good question. So I guess I'll rewind a little bit. About 2-3 years before I made the deck, I was creating these heirloom wedding invitations, and it was like large paintings that I would shrink down and make into like these enchanting little invitations that people would send out to their guests. But the whole point behind that was that I didn't want them to throw it away. Like, you get an invitation, you toss in the bin. I wanted it to be like a piece of art to remember the wedding. So really love that whole process of getting to know what enchants a bride and groom when they got married. And that's when the whole world came together. But I got really burned out. I worked myself to death. Like, I had this whole business around creating these enchanting work, but I wasn't myself taking time to nourish my spirit. I wasn't taking time. I was working around the clock. I was working weekends, and I burned out so badly. I had to close my studio down because I just couldn't imagine myself printing another piece of paper. So bad. And at that time, it was kind of a dark place for an artist to be, because I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. And I had spent 3 years building up the studio that I was proud of, but I could not run it because I was just dry, emptied out.
So it actually wasn't also, I think, sustainable in like on different levels, right? You put so
Yes.
much work and love, and I can imagine the deadlines, like you couldn't go late on somebody's wedding,
Exactly.
right? It's
Yeah.
a lot of different levels.
Yeah, I was definitely that. So it was like, I didn't want to keep doing something where at the end there, I really had to get people to help me finish up, because I just like didn't want to do it at all. And it was sad, because like I loved that process, but I couldn't do it. And it's the most heartbreaking thing to be an artist. And it's like, you just couldn't continue with the work you wanted to do. And so I was in sort of that dark place, trying to find myself again, and trying to find a way to be able to express what I wanted to do in the world, but not in a way that would burn me out, and in a way that would be more aligned with sort of what I wanted to do. I mean, working in weddings is a very niche thing. Some people spend a lot of money, and it can be very wasteful. And it wasn't really sort of that part, the industry I wanted to see myself in. But it was a good stepping stone. So I was in this kind of like in a stage of my life where I was looking for myself, and I started kind of beginning to see the pieces, pulling the pieces together of what inspired me as a creative. And while I was doing that, I was taking a lot of walks. And we had just moved into a part of town that we were surrounded by oak trees. It felt really magical. So every day I would go on a walk. I'll bring my camera, and sometimes I'll bring a little toy rabbit. And it became, so at that point I was hardly painting, right? So I wasn't painting, but I had started to put together what I call Walking the Labyrinth. It's like a course for creatives to help them reawaken their creativity. So I was doing that at the same time that I was sort of trying to find myself. And it, like, there were times where it woke up the spark in me, and I would run back, like I'll see the roses on a bush, and all of a sudden like a painting would pop up like in my head. So before this, I was always just painting for other people, right? I never painted for myself. It was always painting what other people wanted. And it was really hard for me to get into a place to paint what I wanted, to paint what I saw in the world. And to be able to see a rose in the bush and have a painting pop up in my head was a big deal for me. So I would run back and paint, and then that sort of that stage and sort of in my life really opened up the door. And like I think it was like 1 or 2 summers later, where we were just traveling up and down the California coast, and I had brought my paints with me, and I would paint like everywhere. And at the end of that summer, I think it was several summers ago, I had like filled up 2 or 3 sketchbooks with, paintings from the decks. Yeah, these were all sketchbooks. These were all, many of them were done outdoors while we were camping, on hikes, and that's where they came from. I had another deck in mind that I was working on. Yeah. Some of you guys might remember I was working on a animal spirits deck.
Okay.
That will be coming, but I'm halfway through.
There is some animals here as well, I think, right?
There is some animals there, yes. So they sort of made their way in anyway. But I was working on another deck, and this wasn't a deck that I had in mind. But I had all these I had filled out all these sketchbooks and these ideas. Like I was working on, practices that would inspire me, and these lifelong ways of seeing the world resurfaced, because we always carry them with us, right? Like we were talking about us both being like in amazement, like being a bride married to amazement, and that's always been a part of me. And there are a lot of things that I do that I take for granted that I don't realize I do. Yeah. Like I would go out and I would automatically look for the colors and textures in our surrounding, or I would instantly look closer. And these are things I kind of take for granted that I do all my life. And sometimes I forget that I do them. Yeah. And so when I was trying to re-energize myself, I realized that I was doing these things. And then I was like, oh, I'm doing these things. I need to record them. I need to document them, because they're awakening my inner child, which is what it was. I had lost my inner child. And so there's 2 worlds I was building. This one was the world of rediscovering my inner child. And then the paintings I was doing out in the natural world, they were coming together. And at the end of it, I realized that I need to make a deck.
Yeah. So it's interesting, before like you go further, that I love that, because I think that's a really important piece of advice for anyone who is trying to embark of any creative process. Like, you didn't know the outcome of your creative process while you were doing it. And I think that happens so often. As soon as you actually start, probably that's it.
Exactly.
You start doing, doing what brings you joy, what you kind of just excited about. And then you never know what doors are going to be open, what happens later along the line. And I think it happens so often. I spoke with so many people, so many creators. I know it from my own self. Like, I never made wands to sell wands. Like, yeah. I just had to make a wand.
You had to make them. It just has to come out.
And then like show my friends, look what I did, like it only happened like down the line that somebody was even, hey, do you sell them? Like, okay. But it never was even in my radar. That's what I'm doing to start with. It was just, yeah. And I think this is important to remember, because sometimes we squash that creative fire when we try to plan or that outcome or whatever expectations and, where we should get. It's truly that saying, that journey is important, and the destination.
The journey, yes. The journey is important. And I actually learned a lesson this past 2020 about squashing your creativity when you plan it out too much. As a working artist, there is some amount of planning needed, because you need to be able to produce a certain number of things, because that's part of your, your business model. But I have learned that it's so important to leave it still somewhat open-ended. That there needs to be it's good to have some kind of guiding theme. Like I went to it knowing that I would make a set of paintings inspired by my outdoors. I had a theme I was working with. I had a color scheme I was obviously drawn to, but that was it. Like a lot of it was open-ended. I didn't know what it was going to be at the end. I didn't necessarily set out to make 3 sketchbooks, you know, like a lot of it was left open-ended, and I was just following my heart. And the opposite side of it is if you start planning out everything too much, then, which is what I did in 2020, it just becomes like a weight on your shoulders that you are sort of trying to meet expectations all the time, and that is the quickest way to kill your...
Yeah, especially in 2020. Which
yes,
is like,
on top of everything else.
I had it all planned.
Yes, that's exactly it.
It's like, oops, okay, let's change the plan now. And I wanted to ask you, is the art style, this is your art style, yes? You always were drawn to watercolor, and I don't know, is this watercolor or is it?
Yes, it's watercolor, but also water media, because there are some inks in here, there's some acrylics in here on top of watercolors, but I wasn't always painting in this style. I was trained as an architect.
Yeah.
So I was very much line work and all planned out and meticulous, thorough research. And that just stifled my creativity. And I felt like I wanted to get out of that. And so what the interesting thing about a lot of these paintings is they all started out with just what I call mood paintings. I sit down at a scene and I'm normally just pouring paint on a paper. And it's all like intuitive. I don't always know when I'm pouring paint on a paper what I'm trying to achieve. And a lot of them were born that way. It was just me trying to capture how I felt about the landscape, not necessarily in a literal way. But then somewhere along the way, I would sort of flesh in details. And then,
because they are, some of them have a little bit more kind of, you can recognize, oh, there's a butterfly, there's a tree, there's something, but some of them are very moody, you would say, like more emotional and kind of abstract, and whereas some others have the animals or like little things. Okay, so in the end, like you decided this is a deck, right? I'm going to make a deck out of those. And the name of the deck, did it come later, or you kind of?
It was pretty instant. It was one of those things that I wanted it because there's so much about my deck that is very nebulous. The paintings aren't always, you have to think in a lot of these times. Sometimes you have to look and you have to kind of think about it a little bit. So I didn't want a name to be something you had to think about. I wanted a name to be pretty obvious what it is, because in a sense, this isn't something that people know. This is not, wonder walking is not a familiar thing. Like there isn't a lot of decks that guide us to do these things. So I wanted it to be obvious from the get-go what the deck was about. So it was pretty instant.
Cool. And then the shape, because it's also a little bit different too. Like usually you have the cards this way, right? You have them vertical, horizontal. Yeah, and they all horizontal. Yeah,
horizontal.
You just felt it like an artist, like I see with my 2 eyes. That's how I see. Or like, why did you decide to do the horizontal thing?
Because all my books were landscape. All the sketchbooks were landscape, but they were not just landscape. They were like dual-sided. So they were like, the books were like this, like 2 pages, and the paintings would run right across. So even if I had wanted to do something like this, I would be doing a lot of cropping, and it just seemed like it would remove a lot of the, the original feel of the paintings if I tried to force it into a portrait.
I love it. It's it's not that there is no decks with the horizontal cuts. They are usually, but usually they mixed, which sometimes I find a bit annoying. Not annoying, like I have these decks and I use them and there's no problem for me, but sometimes when you kind of taking a picture for Instagram or something, and like it just kind of doesn't look so symmetrical when you have like 2 cuts like this and then the one goes like this or 2 like this. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but I find this one, you know, I didn't find it in any way like it's cool, like they all just horizontal. But I remember talking to my husband at some point, you know, when I was, I don't know, I got my first iPhone or something, and I wanted to take some videos, and I used to do videos, you know, in this way. And he goes,
Yep.
do them this way because this is how the eyes are located.
That's true. It is a cinematic, the
Yeah.
natural cinematic way of looking at things. What it's natural for our eyes to look at it that way too. So maybe, yeah, I guess in a way it benefited the way we see the world for it being landscape like that. So I like that.
It kind of like just, yeah, it reminded me of it, you know, when I saw them, they like the little snapshots from a film, like, you know, nature. Yeah. Oh, I love this deck so much. Okay, so and then you had the deck. You kickstarted for the first edition, right?
Yes, I actually did not kickstart the first edition. I had a very limited, because it was such a new idea, and I was sort of like, oh, are people even gonna like buy this? So I had 100 decks made, and it was very small, and I didn't even have a box. It was just like a card, like the pocket guide would it's very similar to this current one, but it had a little thickness to it, and it would wrap around the cards.
Okay.
And I would tie it together with a little magnifying glass on a ribbon. And so that was the first edition. And it was like, it sold out like within a few months. And then there were like people emailing me to ask me when the next one would come out. I'm like, so maybe people do want this. And so I did a Kickstarter the following year. And at that time, this was very early on when I was still sort of trying to find myself. I had kind of a style that I was sort of going towards, and this world that I was building was starting to surface, but I really didn't have much confidence about what I was doing because, you know, I was always painting for other people, and I wasn't painting much for myself. And so this was like a new thing. I didn't really know. I mean, I had an Instagram, I had some followers, but I didn't really think that anybody would be interested in my personal stuff.
Yeah.
And then I started a Kickstarter, and then like all these people came out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I didn't realize you guys were interested in what I had to say, because like my Kickstarter was funded 50% in like the first day. It was a shock. And so the Kickstarter happened, which really changed everything because it made me realize that it's an important thing that I'm doing. And it really led to like, you know, a lot of other things, and this came out of the Kickstarter too, the journal, which
it looks amazing. But they sold out now, right? The journals.
It is sold out.
Yeah,
it is sold out, but I have a copy for you.
You do? I wanted to say, Amy, I want a copy next time.
I have a copy for you. I saved it.
I saw it, you know, I saw it online. I'm thinking, wow, that looks amazing. But, you know, like, I know, like it's
overwhelming though.
Yeah, yeah. And also if you lived in Poland, I would just come and visit and grab one. But it's a different, but they do look amazing. And can you tell a little bit more about it? Because I think this is the least, you know, I haven't seen it. Like, so why did you do the journal? Like, because the deck comes with the little pamphlet. So there is a description of each card and like some ideas and, you know, a little bit of interactive kind of ideas as well. And the journal was just extension. And I just to like also like chip in, because you're also interested in meditation. At least that's how, you know, what I got from your website. Like you seem to be interested in mindfulness and just really being present, coming back to the body, like this whole embodiment. Now when I look at your chart, this Taurus just makes all sense. But so please just tell us a little bit more about the journal and like your interests. And
So while I was creating this deck, I had already created this entire structure behind the deck. Like the deck itself, I mean, it's not just a set of cards based on paintings. that I did, which it is on the surface, that's what it is. But there's actually an entire system behind it. And it's called the Labyrinth of Enchantment. And it is, so I was creating this entire world on the side along in parallel with these cards. And there's so much more to it that I could not squeeze into the deck, that I wanted to be able to tell people, like, what are the 4 realms? I know it goes into it really briefly in here. And if all you have is the deck, it's enough. It's enough. Yeah. But if you are fascinated with the idea of the 4 realms of the Labyrinth of Enchantment and what it means for the creative spirit to dig deeper into it, then that's what this book is about. Because it's not just like, you know how you have tarot cards and each, like, you'll have these larger guidebooks where it goes into detail about each card, the archetypes, and it does the same thing, but there are actual activities here that you can take on. Like in the first page, it talks about the meaning, the associated, you know, stuff that we are pretty familiar with, hidden interpretation and the symbolism behind it. But I wanted there to be a resource for people if they looked at a card and are intrigued by it and they want to find out more about what they can do with this card. So I'll have, like, observe this on your wonder walk. Like, as you walk, pay attention to the textures and patterns on the rock, in the sand, and the tree trunks. Look closely at the flowers and leaves, soften your gaze, relax, and let your mind wander. So it's like, it's a little bit more holding your hand.
Yeah, a little bit more interactive in a way. And I think, you know, being in tarot oracle kind of world for so long, I still think that a lot of people are a little bit kind of shy about abstract decks and decks that don't show necessarily, like, you know, something really obvious. And I know that people love them, but often it's like, but what do I do with them? Like,
what do I do?
Mean, you know, like how, like to me now, like this year, especially 2020, I just really fell in love with abstract decks. But I think also I get bored, you know, and I find them so curious, and I'm like, it just excites me, right? Like I don't want another obvious picture. I want something that I go like, ooh, let me think about this one, you know, like what's this one? And also as a nature lover, I just, even in the little, you know, the pamphlet, the little questions and the kind of little activities that you gave, they so inspiring. They inspired me so many times. We were laughing, you know, when I came from Croatia and went out to do my first vlog with your deck, and you can guys watch it as well. I will link it below. When I was just thinking, oh my God, it's so ugly where I am right now. Like in Croatia was so amazing, and I could really do a wonder walk. But actually, when we were talking about it, this is a wonderful tool to use when maybe it's not so exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit like shitty, and you have to find a little magic and, you know, maybe inspire yourself to look for it.
That's an important point. And I want to emphasize that before I lose that train of thought. One of the reasons why I made this deck is because even though I love the idea of wonder seeking, I love wonder walking, by nature, I am somebody who struggles with inertia. It's very difficult for me to work myself up to walk out the door and, like, go on a bike ride, go on a walk. That's just how I am. And so having a tool like this where you can kind of shuffle and pull a card and, like, ooh, I have something now. I have a bit of motivation to go outside and do this and be active and be involved, you know, in the outside world, really helps me, because otherwise I'm just content staying at home, you know, wrapped up in my blanket, looking at my phone. So it is right. It's so easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy to be in that mode. Yeah. And so what you're saying is, like, sometimes we do need the tool to get us out there when the hills are brown, like it is here in California, when it's dull and dreary in winter, right, in Poland. To have something to like inspire us to open our eyes and see, because magic is always there. We're not always in the mood to look for it, but
it's there. Exactly.
It's there.
Which I found even in the shittiest of times in Poland, during the winter without snow, with dog poos and all the other things out in the open. But yeah, it was really, I think I find it, it was really beautiful. And I'm already inclined like this, you know, like we
Yeah, exactly.
also for people who maybe aren't so inclined, that maybe they find that's a totally new, or I don't like, or whenever I go for a walk, I always do the sport walk or something, you know, to have a little bit different approach, slow down. Actually, we were laughing, like, you know, zoom in, find those little things, kind of stop a little bit. And I think it's hard, what you're saying, it's really hard for everybody to like get out of comfort zone, especially after 2020, when you know, we kind of were bound to Zoom and virtual reality.
No, it's so true. And I wanted to say something. You mentioned, oh, you know, if you're someone who's always inclined to like go on these like, I need to climb that hill, and that's actually an interesting thing. And in this, it's not in the deck, but it's in the book. I talk about the yin and yang energy of some of the realm of some of the cards. So for a card like height, right? It may be all about like, I'm going to get to the top of that hill. But for a card like listen, it's just a meander. And you're just walking and seeing, you know, there's no goal. You're just looking around you. And then there's also a card like disruption. Oh no, not disruption, discomfort. Discomfort is one of my favorite cards, because we all have different zones of discomfort, right? For somebody who is always about that, I'm going to do a 3-mile hike today, versus someone who's like, I don't really want to walk up a hill. Discomfort means different things. Yeah. So somebody who's more of a yang kind of wonder walker might be like, oh, okay, maybe today I need to just be still. You know, all I need to do is walk to the edge of the water and stand there and not feel like I have to climb that hill, not feel like I have to do 3 miles, but just like be, versus someone who's more like me, like, I really don't want to climb that hill. But climbing that hill and waking up at sunrise, you feel that sense of accomplishment sitting up there, and it's like the sun is rising, the sky is beautiful, and something you never see, because it's hard for you to work up the energy to do that kind of thing. So there's different ways.
And there's one more thing that you mentioned when you were talking about the deck, and in the beginning, you know, that you kind of were finding your own way to inspire yourself to do these things. And I think that's also a big part of creating something or teaching something. You know, I remember when I started my tarot blog, I was actually learning tarot myself, you know, so I was writing about what I was learning. Same was with Tarot de Marseille or other things, like, you know, I was like fascinated with something.
I love your Tarot de Marseille series.
Yeah, right. And I was just like, I didn't know shit by then. Like, I was just basically like reading something, going, oh my God, that's fascinating, let's make a video about this, because you know, like it was the same process of kind of, and that's my other kind of point that I want to make, that like for people who want to do something creative or who want to share something and they think like, oh, will people like it, you know, or
I have to be an expert first.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you do not have to be an expert, and you do not have to know the outcome or the end of the story, but you can still share like something that you're fascinated by, because usually when you're fascinated, I probably I will be fascinated.
It's infectious.
By it. Exactly. It's contagious, and it's like resonates. If we kind of resonate, you know, with the same kind of things, like if I love, I don't know, makeup and jewelry, I probably won't be resonating with Deck for Wonder Walking. But if we resonate and you inspired and you excited and you're sharing, like, I'm feeling it, you know. So I think it's it's like really wonderful to just mention it, and like I think it's going to be inspiring for other people as well, just to, you know, share those passions that they have, that they can actually, they don't have to be experts, they don't have to. If they're passionate, if they want to share, if they want to do, you know, we will be feeling it.
Like, no, I love what you said. It's so true. Often we teach what we need to learn ourselves. And it's at that moment when, at least in my experience, that teaching is the most powerful, because you are moved by it yourself. You are being inspired in real time, and it's such a special experience to be along that journey with somebody who is discovering something momentous for the first time.
And I think you can, it doesn't matter if we meet if we have a live meeting.
Yeah.
But I felt it when I went to your website. I was just like, I love it. Like you could feel this enchantment. You could feel the magic. And I know, like usually, you also run a business. It's also part of marketing, but marketing doesn't have to be shitty. Marketing can really be true to a person and can truly like be inspiring. And I love how your website looks. It's beautiful. Makes me want to go back, and it's so many different like interesting blog posts that go deeper to some of those realms of the deck. And you have some videos, and yeah, it's just like really wonderful. And I think it is part of this, that it wasn't just, oh, let's make money quickly on this deck for wonder walking, because it's truly something that you did because it was important for you, and
it had to come out. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think for all the creatives who are watching your channel, pay attention to the thing in you that needs to come out. And it needs to come out when it keeps popping its head out when you're working on other things. And it's like, hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. Like, and then you're just like, oh, so, you push it away and you work on other stuff. Like it keeps coming like, hey, I'm here. Remember me? Like, work on me. And once you hear that enough, you know that, okay, it's time.
I've got to do my job now. And yeah, you're right. And sometimes it actually requires like risky decisions and like, giving up stuff that you think, oh, now what now? But it happens so often. We hear those stories all the time when people just go, oops, left, I don't know, comfortable position, well-paid job to do and pursue something that was totally like, didn't promise anything.
I've done that. That's what I did. That's basically what I did. I had to drop everything I was working on. I was doing graphic design at the time because it pays the bills.
Yeah.
And it was like an interim time between creating art and finding the next thing. And I pretty much dropped everything, even though it was the biggest money maker, and invested like 2 years. I had to get a part-time job just so I can create something that I really deeply felt that needed to be in the world. And you have to take that risk. I'm lucky because, my husband earns money too. So it's not just me. But it's not a luxury for everybody. Everybody gets to say, hey, I'm going to take a sabbatical, just have a part-time job and work on this. Sometimes you have to do it on the side in the evenings or in early mornings before your kids wake up. But it's so important to honor when that call comes. So important as creatives.
And I remember when I started doing wands, it was just, I could not make wands. Like it was, I had full-time job and I was coming home and I couldn't wait to go home to just do those wands, it was like sitting there and like I was never, like it never made me tired. It was this extra.
Yeah, you get energy from it.
But like, it wasn't tiring. It was like really actually exciting. And, I don't know, at some point that was my job, but not at the beginning. At the beginning, it wasn't my job. I had a full-time other job.
Right.
But yeah, it's totally true. And
it's a rare thing.
Sorry?
So I wanted to say how rare it is to have that spark that you want to make something, because I can tell, as a working artist, doesn't always happen. If that's what, it's very rare and special when you are in that mode that you have something you're excited to make, because there's going to be droughts. There's going to be times when you don't have anything at all that you're excited about. So when it does happen, it's special.
Yeah, no, totally. And also I think when you have these droughts and those pause moments, it's also important to kind of nurture those. And it's hard for me. And, 2020 wasn't the most inspiring year for me, not because of 2020, but just I'm at this moment when I'm like, oh, another deck review and I'm going to puke. Should I say it? I'm like, no, I love decks reviews, guys. I do, but sometimes like you're like, oh no, it's always the same, and it's a different deck, but it's the same. Like what I do, like what am I here to do? Like I want to do something more, and I do readings and I do this, but somehow because I've been doing it for a few good years now, I just reached this plateau, and I kind of I need to I just lost some inspiration here. I need to, you know, find
need
that.
a little disruption.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking, you know, also that it's hard to take that pause, especially when you're creative, when you work, when this is your bread, you know, and this brings you, pays your bills. And, you know, for me, this is my only job. So I'm just kind of thinking, oh, like, yeah, that pause, even though you know how important it is, it's like, for me, it's really uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, I want to be inspired now, like yesterday, tomorrow, every bloody day.
I feel everything you're saying.
Yeah.
It resonates so much. And as creatives, so used to being on that, you know, like that mode.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to sit in the discomfort and to sit in the feeling of nothingness, that nothing's coming, nothing's working. But you're right. We have to nurture that time, because that is really the seed. I like everything I've ever made that made any difference always comes from a place of pain or a place of learning.
Yeah. For me, sometimes also place of silence. I remember, you know, I used to go to Vipassana retreats, and I've done 3 of those 10 days ones.
Wow.
And, you know, there's like no reading, no music, nothing. It's just like totally like you can't write that in the diary. It's just you and your brain, basically, and your
That's scary.
body. Yeah, but, you know, somehow it's like I had so many ideas. I'm just thinking, will I remember them? Because I can't write them down.
Yes, I've heard about that being a problem at the meditation retreats.
But I had so many ideas. It was actually, you know, how sometimes we do things to inspire ourselves. I think we all are so rich in ideas, every one of us. I think it's sometimes wise to, like, yeah, do this silent thing. And I was just recently doing something, I don't know, my stalker right now, it's 2 of Swords and 2s in general. And I'm just like pulling this cards because I want to make a video about 2s. But this 2 of Swords, I was reading about the Crowley's 2 of Swords. And he says in his deck, this is like a piece. This 2 of Swords disappeared. But anyway, I have all the other 2s. But anyway, I was reading about his 2 of Swords, and he speaks in his book about this dynamic silence.
Ooh, I like that word. Dynamic silence.
But it's not like silence, like numb silence, you know, like sometimes you just don't hear.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of, and that's why I was always wondering, why is she in white, you know, why is she just like, and why in one deck this is peace, and when you read Rider-Waite-Smith, you go like, oh, she's, you know, cutting off her emotions and she's holding this attention, or she has to go within, and there's inability to make decision and blah, blah, blah. You know, there's like so like difference in approach, this difference. And, you know, it can be anything really. It can be this and this, but I just find like in 2 of Cups, you don't get these differences. It's like, you know.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. But in 2 of Swords, you're like,
Well, because the mind, we are our worst enemies, right? Yeah. The mind, whatever you, like you can go through the entire range of emotions sitting in stillness. The strife, the feeling trapped or feeling like peaceful, all those things can run through your mind because it is what you, it's what comes out.
And whatever you, attach to and kind of start building up the story, right?
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so in this Vipassana, it was really cool because that was the dynamic silence. It was like this.
I love that word.
You know, that kind of rich, and you don't even talk, like you couldn't, you know, you don't discuss your ideas. You don't say a word basically to anybody because you don't speak to anybody. You're like in this room by yourself. And it's fascinating to me because it happened to me each time I went, you know, it wasn't just like, maybe it was by chance, you know. So now I'm like, but again, I should be smarter. I should know by now, you know, Kasia, if you don't feel so inspired, shut the fuck up. You know, just don't try too hard. But no, you know, we keep pushing, right? We're like, no, I have to do more, write more. What class should I do?
Like my internal monologue right there.
Maybe this. And then you start and you're like, I don't think I like tarot anymore. I don't think I like anything. So I think that would be also a great tool to kind of get out, be quiet, because it's a very, even through your artwork, I think it has this silence, but yeah, the dynamic silence. It's
a dynamic silence. What you just said there, actually, you're kind of hitting on a lot of things that have become the inspiration for the deck. And I am definitely somebody who lives in my head. I tend to overthink things. And that's why I get caught in that inertia, right? Like, because I'm just like, should I go? Should I stay? I mean, maybe I should just sit here. Well, if I don't, if I go out, it might be nice. Well, it's too troublesome. So it's like, there's constant, it's always grinding in there. So one of the reasons why I made this cards is because to remove that, to quiet the mind and just focus on one thing. So it's like it's in a way, it's sort of meditative, because this forces you to be focused on this a single thought, and not let everything else sort of drag you all over the place. So getting out of your body and your mind, getting out of your mind into your body, is definitely one of the reasons.
And tell us a little bit more about the kind of surrounding things for the deck, like because you do courses. I don't know if you teach them ongoing. How does it look with the...
Oh, okay. So right now I'm actually in a process of pulling them in together into into the Labyrinth of Enchantment. Right now there is a site where you go there and you see like the stuff I do, but behind the scenes they're still sort of built on different websites. And it's hard to sort of like link it together, because I feel it's important to understand what the Labyrinth of Enchantment is about, the entire structure behind it. So like if you're into tarot, it's like understanding the archetypes behind the tarot, understanding, the different stages, of the tarot and what it means. So the more you understand it, the deeper you can go into the world, and it will benefit you. So I want to do that here. And in order to do that, I need to have it all in one place. But before I made the cards, Walk the Labyrinth is the creativity course that I made. And I have been selling them alongside here and there. I'm going to retool it this year, so that it is brought in, and then there's a bit gamification, get people to be more invested in it. I started a membership in 2020. It was called the Enchanted Explorers Club. So basically what this club was about was every month I have a card that is, I've already planned all the cards, and it goes into the club, into the card itself. There's a creative project, there are wonder walking prompts. So it takes a lot of stuff from the journal, but also some other things like I usually talk to an artist about the general themes of the card. So I interview another artist, and we did like 7 to 8 months of that in 2020, and it was exhausting. It was exhausting because I was trying to do too much. And in the beginning, it was great because I had all this energy. It was the beginning of the pandemic. I like really wanted to bring some light into the world. And then I overextended myself because I wanted to do too much. And, didn't know where to stop for myself, because it's like I had all these ideas. And and also because related to what we were talking about earlier, where you're trying to pre-plan everything, it kind of sucks out the creative part of it. I was trying to pre-plan the entire month, and I had templates and like it was all thought out, and it just like really, it needed to be more open-ended for it to breathe a little bit. And I think what I found at the end of the 7 months was like, I wanted more time to breathe, like more time for my creativity to expand naturally. So not like, it's not so jam-packed. It's like going to a conference where it's like, there's so many things going on, you don't know which one to pick. So more room to breathe. So I am pausing the club for now to reconfigure it in a way that there's more spaciousness.
Yeah, I hear you totally. And it's, you know, it's always an experience, because you wouldn't have known that if you haven't had done that.
Exactly.
And that's also, you know, I was laughing recently with James Wanless when I did interview him, that, you know, I did for 2 years, I had done that email readings, and I thought like, I fucking hate email readings. Like, I cannot do that. And but I did it for 2 years to really know that that's it.
Yeah.
If there were only email readings available, that wouldn't have been my job. Like, I just wouldn't be able to do that. I just didn't, like, it was so disconnecting. You know, even when I have that type of connection through internet, or even when I make a video, to me, this is a perfect medium, because I like to be expressive, and I like to, you know,
me too.
gesticulate and do all of this, and it's much easier. But when I sit and just like write, I feel like all my energy, it's just, I don't know where it goes, but it's not there. And but I've done it, you know, and you've done it, and you know, at least when you're revisioning it, like what you don't want and what didn't work for you, and how to do
what
it.
felt like work.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I've done this one intuitive tarot workshop in 2020 as well, and it was also a great lesson, you know. And I had the feedback, and I know what
the feedback's amazing,
and what I can, you know, what I liked, and I thought it wouldn't cost me that much energy, but it was actually quite, and I had limited number of people, like up to 15, you know, but it was my first Zoom group, so I didn't really know how to organize it that well, you know, and the screen wasn't, you know, when I recorded it, it wasn't the right mode. And anyway, you learn, right? You learn, and you
you learn all these things, and then just like the feedback, that's the part that's important, because I know it was important for that time. It was the right move to have done it, but then we learn that there are parts of it that could be done better, that could be more in tune to my natural rhythm, which is essentially it wasn't.
And also this one important thing which you said, which I think maybe it has to do something with Sagittarian Mercury, I don't know. I also cram too many things. Like, I always think it's not enough. I want to give so much to, like, you know, change
a problem
through like half an hour reading, or, you know, or course or something. And I have to learn. Like, I ran a few workshops with my friend Carney, and she taught me a little bit, like, Kasha, doesn't have to be so much, you know, like, and you're right, like, there's this room for breathing and for people to actually experience something. They don't have to do all the exercises, you know. But I never want to give too little, and I'm myself, I like to have that abundance, you know, but sometimes it's just too much. Also, when I started doing astrology readings, I did so much, like, you know, so disconnected, you know, in some way, that the person, like, I'm sure they walked out after 2 years listening to 2 hours listening to me and going, what did she say? So I had to really simplify, and I think that deck has that quality of, like, simple but deep, and you can expand as much as you want with those prompts. You can just go a tiny little bit, or you can go really deep if you want. So it's a really great kind of tool. And I don't know, I had so many decks that arrived when I came from Croatia. I think I had, like, you know, 10 decks waiting to be reviewed. And I remember unpacking them all and going, oh fuck, this is going to be exactly what I was afraid it's going to happen. They all amazing, but it's too much. Like, you go on this overwhelm, like, oh.
I saw your table, you took a picture of it, and they were like covered in it.
I was like, oh my God. And then I started opening them, and I was like, I got excited, you know. It was a bit different. It's not another tarot, but so I thought, like, okay, it's, you know, oracle deck, but unique, but also because of this nature and that element of interactivity that you can actually take it out, go out. It kind of motivates you to do something different. It's really wonderful. So, wow, I love it. Hey, and Amy, just to maybe finish off slowly, do you have any maybe special ways you can share how, if people who have the deck, or if they want to get it, they can still buy it? Yes, is it available, the deck?
Yeah,
deck is available. Okay, we'll link it below if anyone is interested. But what do you do with your deck? Do you just take it out for walks, or is there any other ways you kind of like to use it? Or
yeah, So there's a couple of different things you can do. Obviously, the first way is to just pull a card, right? I normally pull a card before I leave, but I have also brought it out and pulled it like out there. If I am pulling it before I leave, then what I normally do is, see if I can show you guys. I have a little, little pocket here. So I'll put my card in here. It's nice to be able to, you can also put the pocket guidebook in there. So I can like look at it when I'm out there. I don't have to carry the whole deck. So I do this a lot. But if I'm going to be out for a while, I'll bring the whole thing. So that's obvious, right? That's the first step. The other thing you can do is you can pull 2 cards. So you can pull 2 cards that have like opposing energies, or you can pull them blind and then kind of let the 2 cards talk to each other. So it adds a layer of complexity to the walk. For example, if you pull textures and let's see, listen. You pull textures and listen together, and now how do you use those cards together? So like, when you're looking at listening to me is about really understanding what it's saying, what the nature is saying to you, and sometimes it's reflecting how you feel. And then textures is obvious, a very sort of physical thing. You're just looking at the textures of the flowers. So if you have these 2 cards together, then you might start to think about, what is this textures actually saying to you? Yeah. If it's just a textures card, then it's just like, oh, maybe you're just sitting there, you can document how it looks. It's just a petals, it's a physical, it's easy. But when you have these 2 cards in combination, then you're thinking about textures. What are these textures actually saying? How are they resonating? And so you're invited to explore a little deeper. And you can do it with 2, 3, 4 cards. Obviously, with 4 cards, it's a little harder. Yeah, that's one way. The other thing that I'm starting to do, and really I've been doing all of 2020 because of the club, is to pick a card for the month and really dig into it. So this month, the card is Dream. When I was doing Listen, November last year, right around the election time, it was a really good card for that month because it was about really thinking about listening to other people, listening to ourselves, listening to the environment. And then at the end of the month, I realized that this card was really about stillness. At that time, this card became to be about stillness. And I realized I didn't have very many moments of stillness in my life because I was so busy. There was always something to be done. And in my studio, there wasn't really a spot to be still. I had a chair, like a cushion, a floor cushion that I'm supposed to sit on and meditate, but it's in part of the studio that's cluttered and I never go there. Yeah. So what I ended up doing is I created a fort. You know how we used to create this fort when we were little and then like cover it with blankets. I made a fort under my work table, and I hung like fairy lights and my favorite scarves. And so it's all like a little cave you crawl into. And I call it my fort of stillness. And so all this came out from just meditating on this card, walking with it all month, having it as a theme. And so
going deeper and kind of slowing down, so you can
slowing down.
And this card can be maybe different in a few months' time, and bring you some different revelations.
Oh, totally different insight. Exactly. Yeah. And the nice thing about having just one card for the month is, if you're feeling the urge to slow down a little bit, not having to draw a card every month or every time you go for a walk. It could also be one card for the whole week. Yeah. So, it gives you time to really sink in and think about it in all aspects, which I really like. I'm starting to do that a little bit more, like using that for a whole week or using it for a whole month.
Yeah. And do you have anything like creative that you would encourage people to do with the because on your website it looked like you would want people to be more interactive, like creating art or something like
I like using this as journal prompts. Photography prompts are really great. This card, my card of the month dream, has been my photography prompt. So when I go out with my camera, I try to capture scenes that reminds me of sort of like imaginary worlds or dream worlds or surreal worlds. And you know, in order to do that when you're using a camera, you kind of have to look closer, or maybe you try to go out early in the morning when the fog is out still to capture that moment.
Yeah.
So these are great for photography prompts. It's also great for painting. Like I will bring the whole deck out, and if I'm sitting at a scene and I have my watercolor kit with me outdoors, and sometimes it can be overwhelming, the surroundings. So you're trying to zoom in, you don't know what to pick. So you can draw a card, and for example, you draw a card and it says landmark. And so, okay, so now you have something to focus on, and you might scan your eyes around you. It's like, what's a good landmark that I could paint in this scene? And
yeah, that's cool. Because I think there's a lot of creative people in Tyler community. At least from what I see, you know, people are loving art and like picking drawing and painting and doing all sorts of stuff. So I think that's really cool also, because actually those little prompts are very open, and
they're very open. Yes,
that's really cool, because I'm thinking, oh, you know, I can't draw, let's say, but you can always go iPhoneography.
iPhoneography. You can do collages. What we did in my club last year was we did a soul collage. Don't know if you're familiar with the term soul collage. So you pick a card and you meditate on like, you know, you start picking, you tear out pictures from the magazine. So you have a stack of magazine pictures, and then you would pull all the stuff that reminds you of what this card says.
Yeah.
And then you would assemble this and make a little.
Which people do dream boards on, like at the end of the year, beginning of the new year.
Yes, similar thing. Yeah. You often find, I often get painting ideas from doing that. Pulling pictures, pulling images around a central theme, a central word.
Yeah. So. I used to do this at some point with, like, you know, picking a word of the year, and on Pinterest or somewhere, like kind of finding images just virtually, which somehow, you know, I associate it with the word. So that's also cool. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. Do you want to say anything else?
I want to say anything else. I would say the most important thing is to not let the card freeze you up. Sometimes, especially if we pull a difficult card, because some cards are difficult. What's a difficult card? Like an easy card is fauna, right? You go out and you look for wildlife, or you look for animals or creatures and bugs. It's an easy card. But sometimes you pull a card and it's naivete or enchantment, and or poetry, and you're required to think a home. Actually, home is quite easy.
You never know, right? You never know.
Yeah, you never know what's difficult for you at that time. So don't let the card freeze you up. Like there are times when I'll pull a card and it's like nothing's coming. So just put a card aside. Don't think about it. Just know that it's there, and just walk and enjoy. And you'll be surprised how your brain would work in the background and would do the work for you without you even trying too much. So don't feel like you have to try too hard, because some days, which is why I like cards of the week, it doesn't always happen on that day, but it might happen the day after or the next evening. And so it's okay to go on a wonder walk and not find wonder that instant.
This is allow yourself this. You don't have to find wonder on a wonder walk.
Don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to find wonder. The more you want to find wonder, the less you will see it, which is kind of it's a dichotomy, or it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So you really want it. Use this as an invitation. It's an invitation to see more. Maybe you'll see it, maybe you're not, and you will more likely see it. I guess that's my
totally. And I think like if I was to like sum up this, that like I wrote this like about you actually and your work, I thought like, you know, that you encourage people to find, you know, curiosity, exploration, childlike enchantment, inquiry around, you know, things when they go around, and just reconnection with what is basically. So sometimes if there is no wonder, maybe that's the wonder. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's enough. And I think
noticing what, sorry, no, you're pulling out all the important stuff, and I'm just like, phew, phew. I think if you're not seeing what the card tells you to say, then just notice.
Yeah.
Just be mindful. Let the card be a theme of what to be mindful about, but just notice. And that's basically the default mode to go into.
Yeah. And I think like I'm doing now this 30-day yoga challenge with Yoga with Adrienne online. And, you know, I could never just motivate myself to do it, you know, at home by myself, like, oh God, kill me. And I just, so I offered my practice to Mary because, you know, I'm crazy about Mary, which is just that kind of, just this ideal. Maybe it doesn't exist, maybe it does, but you know, to me it's this ideal that I'm thinking I'm offering up to the ideal, because obviously I'm flawed. I don't want to do that. Like I'm going to be like, oh no, not today. But then I'm thinking, well, it's not just for me, I offered it, you know, it's a practice. And I felt like if we want to do something and we're afraid of doing something, you can also offer it to something. You can offer it up to open you up, you know, and to kind of take that pressure maybe off you, like having that responsibility for figuring out, finding the wonder. Where is this wonder? Kasia went to socialist blocks and found wonder, and I'm in this beautiful California and can't find wonder. I think, that pressure kind of that, it's sometimes, and it comes to us on many different levels. That's, I think we kind of, it comes back to the same point of like stopping creativity, stopping that.
Totally. That's been the theme, right?
Well, it's a lesson, definitely, and we are learning it, all of us.
So good. Good stuff.
Anything else that it came up to to your mind while we were talking?
I think we covered everything. It has been such a wonderful, rich conversation. Like, and it's always fun to have these conversations, because as you're saying something, I'm just like, yes, that. Tripping over my words.
Exactly. And you know, that also, I love it because like, you know that you're not alone. You're not so unique in your, I don't know, despair or lack of inspiration or amazing inspiration, or, you know, whatever that comes in the moment. And I think it's nice to share. And that's why I have those conversations, because I always think so many people from like, you know, like want to do something and like, they kind of doing it, but they're so afraid of to like really go there and just don't care. I do it. And like, you know, it's important to know that there is a process somehow to it, and you don't have to figure it all out on the get-go.
Trust it.
Exactly. Trust it and just take the first step and see what comes. And sometimes, oops, it might not work out.
Right. But then that in itself is a lesson. What's not working teaches us just as much as what's working.
We don't like it, but
but it's
anyway,
also
we have to finish on some more optimistic acts.
No, it's
everybody.
This is a good time to go on wonder walks, because the world's in lockdown, and we have, you know, there's so much. It's so easy to feel distress if you just read the news.
And I thought, Amy, that actually it came to me when my friend said that they are like in the UK, they on quite strict lockdown. I felt like I would use this in my home, you know, like you can walk around your rooms, look for some.
Absolutely. I've definitely had people do that.
Or like what you did, like just create an enchanted little area or something that, you know, you can just have fun and just go, oh my God, like, what am I, 5 or something? But I need that now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like that came out of just the listen card. So there's so many ways you can use these cards in your home. I mean, basically it is about reconnecting to the tangible, right? Getting out of staring at the phone and wishing you were out on adventures with, you know, that some other people are going on, and just reconnect to your own experiencing of life, your own aliveness, you know. And that could be your home, that could be your backyard, it could be your kitchen. It just, you know, experiencing the tangible in a magical way. It doesn't have to be this beautiful park that you have to walk in, but you can't go because you're in lockdown.
Yeah. Oh, that's very beautiful one to finish that interview with. Thanks, Amy. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. All the info to, you know, check Amy's website, or if you don't have it and want to buy the deck, will be linked in the description box. Maybe we catch up again with Amy, who knows. And thank you so much for, you know, showing up and sharing your magic. It's really beautiful, and I'm so glad like we got to get to know each other. It's kind of
it felt, thank you, Kasia. It's been easy. It's been such a great, easy conversation. I feel like I've known you forever.
Exactly. Yeah. Same. So we say goodbye now. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, I'm going to say now the advertising bit, because my husband said, look, everybody says it on YouTube videos. So if you liked it, please like it on YouTube, comment and share our content. I'm pissing myself laughing because I
love Kasia's channel. Follow her.
I can't do it. But yeah, if you guys like it, please support me and Amy through sharing it. It would be lovely. Anyway, bye.
Bye.
Stop recording.